So I guess we'll start with the trial because that's where you're most recently coming from. I guess first things first, where are we with this trial? We've been doing some dispatches here and there about various people on the stand and what their witness testimony is. Where are we at currently with the trial?
Yeah, so this was a 6-week trial, very long trial, right? It's a civil trial for everybody to be fully understand that it's not a criminal trial. No, there's no risk of anyone going to jail here, although there are risks of significant fines being levied against current and former leadership of the NRA. Although those fines would actually, fine might not be the right word. It's sort of restitution. They'd actually have to pay back the NRA for the money that they diverted towards themselves for lavish personal expenses like private flights and luxury hotel stays and vacations and things of that stuff that I think we've been covering and people have heard a lot about. Wayne LaPierre and how he used NRA money in this fashion. So there's potential for very high restitution payments to be made. And then in addition to Wayne LaPierre and NRA General Counsel John Fraser and former Chief Financial Officer and Treasurer Woody Phillips as the 3 individual defendants in this case, the NRA itself as an entity is also a defendant, even though one of the potential outcomes is that the 3 individual defendants have to pay the NRA a bunch of money. The NRA as an entity, as an organization, is also potentially going to see repercussions from this case, which really will deal more with how the organization is structured and run and who is running it and what sorts of expenses they can put on the books at the NRA. So that's where the trial, sort of the basic underpinnings of this trial. Like the NRA is accused of not managing itself properly within the scope of the law in New York, where it's chartered and has been since just after the Civil War when it was founded. And so because of that, there's three individual defendants on the hook for potentially paying a bunch of money to the NRA, or really to NRA members is sort of how you might want to look at it. And then the NRA as an institution, kind of more NRA leadership is how you want to look at that as a defense. Like people who run the NRA are like technically the NRA is on trial, but it's more the people who run the NRA that are on trial. If that makes sense. So that's the core of this. They're accused of not running the organization properly or within the law, taking money that shouldn't have been spent on personal things, and some of the defendants may have to pay that back. Now, we got to closing arguments this week. They happened on Thursday, so each side made its final push with the jury. Then there was jury selection, which is kind of always a sad thing, I think, to watch, because these people had to sit through 6 weeks of a trial that gets pretty in the weeds on corporate governance, and then a bunch of them didn't actually make the jury itself, right? They were picked as alternate. They do like a bingo thing, and it's kind of fascinating, kind of funny to watch, because they put everyone's card, the number for the jurors, in this bingo style like little rolling machine, and they pick out numbers of, oh, you're going to be an alternate, so sorry. You spent all this stuff. Also, it's a civil trial, so there's only 6 jurors, which is a bit different, obviously, from a criminal trial where you'd have 12. But yeah, they did that, and then the jury went back and deliberated, and right now they haven't delivered a verdict, which I think nobody was really expecting them to on the first day. I mean, the jury instructions alone took about an hour and a half to read on Friday. So that gives you sort of an idea of how complex this case is, because there's a lot of accusations against a bunch of different, it's kind of like 4 trials in one, because, you have 4 defendants. So they're all accused of different things, but some of them are overlapping, right? Like some of these expenses, you could see Wayne LaPierre and Woody Phillips on the hook for, some of the like related party transactions or approvals, things of that nature. And so it gets pretty complex, and they also have to go through like every individual transaction that's accused of being, a violation of law, and then determine how much money the defendants should have to pay back if it is a violation, because the jury will recommend what they think each defendant should have to pay. I don't think John Frazier is on the hook for any money. That's mainly Wayne LaPierre and Woody Phillips, but they could be on the hook for tens of millions of dollars, is what it sounded like. They didn't sum up all this in court. Like the AG in her closing arguments didn't give a specific final total number. She made allusion, or she talked about specific things like Wayne LaPierre's jet travel was over this, and this is only for a couple of years. Right? This case doesn't go all the way. These allegations go back 30 years for how this stuff happened, but the case only focuses on, I think, 2017 through 2022, something in that range. So it's pretty a tight window. And but over that period, she accused him of over $10 million in private jet flights that the AG says were not appropriate. And so he could be on the hook for that. There's another, I think, 3 million or so, maybe a little bit over 2 million. There's somewhere between 2 and 3 million. These things, this is happening in court where there's no recordings, there's no transcripts available. So you kind of have to sit there and watch and type. You can, type things out as they happen. But so forgive me if there's some slight variance in the numbers here. But yeah, that was somewhere in the $2 to $3 million range for jet travel that was for Wayne's relatives, mainly his niece and her husband, that he wasn't even on, that the NRA paid for. So that's another couple $1 million. Then there was this TV show that the NRA had paid for that never got actually made, or by the end of the contract wasn't actually being made. And I think that was somewhere around $13 million. And that I believe could be split between LaPierre and Phillips. So, the jury's going to have to go through all this stuff, determine who's responsible for these things. If they agree with the AG that these were inappropriate, right? Because obviously the defendants are saying these things weren't inappropriate. Well, I should clarify that. Not, for instance, LaPierre paid the NRA. They're either saying these things weren't inappropriate or they're defensible under the law, or that they made restitution, or that they've enacted reforms to solve the issues that are at play in this case.